most people name webinars and they don't put too much thought into it. I have actually been looking and studying a lot of YouTube content creators, whether they're business related or not, and looking at some of their formulas for titling their videos. Because on YouTube, if anyone is anything, they put so much time and energy into two things: the title and the thumbnail. And many of them, if you study YouTube, they do that before they ever start outlining the video. It is the title and the thumbnail. It is the packaging first. And so I've taken a similar approach with my clients' webinars. And so we start with, what is the engaging title? Even before that, you got to pick a topic that is going to be relevant. Put more time into your title, like a YouTube title writer. And then the third is, I hate to see this in my LinkedIn feed. What does every B2B webinar graphic look like? It's got little bubbles with little heads and way too much information, that long title, and it's got the date, the time zone, where's it going to be, all of this sort of stuff that doesn't help with your conversions. It doesn't quickly stop me in the scroll. It doesn't, lead itself to conversion. So the other thing I've pulled from YouTube content creators is to start to create webinar graphics that look like YouTube thumbnails, right? Big face, concerned or shocked or whatever it is, with a big graphic that kind of hooks people in. And then they read the title for a little bit more, just like when we're scrolling on YouTube. So those have been three big things for me: topic, title, and thumbnail.
Hi, this is Mandy Ellefson, host of the Hands Off CEO podcast. Today on the show, I have Logan Lyles, who's the founder of Demand Shift, where their webinar fast track framework helps B2B brands book 5 times more sales calls from webinars than the average industry standard. And with 17 years of experience in B2B sales and marketing, Logan blends his journalism background with deep expertise in storytelling and demand generation. He has also hosted and produced top-ranking podcasts, including B2B Growth and Agency Life, and has hosted over 700 podcast episodes and live webinars across multiple shows. So that's how Logan and I actually got connected a little while back, and he actually had me on a podcast, not a podcast. It was a live webinar.
Yeah, we did a live
Teamwork,
webinar
right?
for the Agency Life series at Teamwork. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I know you have tons of experience, and we already started talking and having a great conversation. I'm like, let's push record. We need to push record. There's some good stuff here. So welcome to the show, Logan.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on the other side of the mic. As you mentioned in my intro, I'm oftentimes the host, whether it's a podcast or a live webinar. So I love the chance to be on the other side with a great host like yourself.
Well, wonderful. It's nice to have you here. And, one of the reasons that I wanted Logan on here was that I know he's a very scrappy, I would say maybe not just a salesperson, but you're really scrappy at getting together a company in a really short amount of time. And I know you've grown quite a bit, even just in the few months that you started your company. And I think that hustle energy that's like very focused, very directed is something that our audience can learn a lot from, especially the more established companies that can kind of get to a place where they get stuck in this old way of thinking. And whereas the newer, younger companies are coming out, they have to come up with innovative things to be able to cut through the noise and to be able to get traction fast. So I'm excited to have Logan share some of that. So I know, Logan, you've had a lot of growth in the short amount of time you have since you've just started the company. So what are you finding has worked really well to be able to get things off the ground?
Yeah, for me, I have been in sales roles, in marketing roles. I've never founded my own company until this year. I've been in lots of different leadership roles. So I feel like I've had kind of exposure to high growth, both established companies and new companies. But it really was new for me June of this year when I decided to go out on my own and launch Demand Shift. And for me, I kind of started with concentric circles. I started looking at, okay, I've got a pretty good network on LinkedIn. I've got 20,000 connections. I've got people in various industries because I've been an in-house marketer. I've been agency side. So I had a variety of connections. So first thing for me was to go to my first circle of connections, and even, not necessarily on LinkedIn, but just texting them, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm planning on. If you know anybody who would be a good fit for this offer, let me know. And I will say, going to market with a very specific offer made it very easy for that close group of friends who were very eager to be supportive. But we've all had those conversations, right? Of like, yeah, I want to refer you, but I don't know when to bring you up. I don't know when I should think of referring Logan and Demand Shift. And with the kind of tight offer that I have around webinars as a service for B2B companies, people started, sending me referrals, people even emailing me and say, "Hey, did you check out this report? Maybe you should do a reaction to this on LinkedIn." So that was where I started with my first degree connections, letting them know what is my very clear offer, and not pitching them of like, "Hey, would you become a client?" But just, "Hey, here's what I'm doing. If you think of anyone, send them my way." The second step was to go a little bit further out from that. So I made sure to make it very clear in launching starting a new position post on LinkedIn, because I know that those always get a lot of engagement, a lot of reach. LinkedIn loves when people get new jobs. So I used that as my primary new company announcement, was that starting a new position post. And that actually generated a client within the first 7 days. I was pleasantly surprised with that. Then from there, I've kind of expanded out to those further concentric circles, really focusing on the network that I've built up on LinkedIn. And we can dig into some specifics of that, both tapping people for referrals, but also engaging them in some original research I decided to launch in a very scrappy way, to use your word from earlier, that is helping me build up content for my new brand, but it has also already led to dozens of sales conversations and a few new clients by being very strategic about that LinkedIn outreach to kind of that second and third level within my connections on LinkedIn.
Mm, I love that. And you were starting to talk about what you were doing in that research, and I remember thinking, that's what we did
Okay.
13 years ago. Just where what I did, it was just me to start
Really?
what's now called Hands Off CEO. That's what I did. I got my first client that way in, I don't know if it was 7 days, but it was within like a couple weeks, 2 or 3
Mm-hmm.
weeks. And it's a very effective way. And I created a whole process like this for our clients too, to be able to pilot their offer. And at one point it just got kind of complex, and we just dropped it. And this is actually something we've been considering bringing back. So one of the things I'd like to hear is, how do you be able to do that research in a way that doesn't just feel like it's very contrived?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, so I worked with ChatGPT a little bit. I've got a great prompt that I've found for doing not entirely, deep market research, because that's what this research is aimed to do, but it can help you surface a lot of the questions that your target market is asking around whatever problem that you solve. So actually, I've saved that as a market research prompt for anybody listening to this. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know you heard about it on the podcast, and I can send you that prompt. But I use that prompt to come up with what are 12 questions people are asking around B2B webinars and lead gen. And so I found some of the common questions. How do we get people to sign up? What channels are working? How do I get them to turn into actual leads? And I paired that with some of the problems that I had experienced, which is the reason I built the offer in the first place, because I had seen some failures, quite frankly, with running webinar campaigns that didn't lead to results. So I used some market research, partnering with ChatGPT, looked at my own experience and what things would I want to know, what things could I create a research report on that are actually questions that people are asking. Like, one of the questions I have baked into the report now is, what's your conversion rate from webinar sign up to booked sales call? And the number one answer is, I have no clue. Right. Lots of people are saying 1 to 3%, maybe 3 to 5%, not much more than that. But the number one answer was, no, I have no clue. And I framed the question that way and included that option because of my knowledge in the space. So it's doing your research, but it's also drawing from your own experiences. And then once I developed the questions, I used Typeform to try and create something very simply. It's about 30 questions that would be comprehensive, but still, when people land on it, you can check it out now at webinarsurvey.com. It says it should only take you about 4 minutes to complete this survey. So I tried to make it a light ask, but also something valuable. And one of the things that I did to try and make it not seem too contrived, in addition to making them actually questions that people want the answers to, is making it valuable for people when I reached out to them via LinkedIn DMs and said, hey, do you want to complete the survey? So I basically had kind of two carrots for them that I dangled. One, by completing the 4-minute survey, you'll get early access to the benchmark data from the report. So it was kind of the access as one of the carrots. And then the second was, hey, and if you want to, we could quote you in the report because I have some open text field questions built in as well, for, kind of rounding it out with quantitative and qualitative data. And so there was a little bit of, I don't know if you could say ego stroke or, a potential to shine the spotlight on them. That was kind of the second carrot. So that to me was targeting the right people, making it a light ask that's not a pitch. It's something that's actually a value, and dangling the right carrots in the messaging that I used in my outreach to them.
Got it. So how many people did you get to participate in that survey then?
We're between 220 and 250 right now, over the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, got it. So then the survey, what is the end? What happens after the survey then?
Yeah. So this has actually been, and this is part of what I do with clients with their webinars. So often we get people to sign up for something, whether that's take a survey, sign up for a webinar, download some sort of lead magnet, and they hit a dead end. It's, hey, go check your inbox. It's over there. Or, we just sent you the calendar invite for the webinar. Or what I could have just done is said, hey, as soon as the report is done, it's going to hit your inbox. And now I did that. But what I also did was, after they answered these 30 questions about, are you using webinars? Have they been effective for you? What's your conversion rate? What channels are effective? All of these things. I just simply put in a question that said, hey, would you like to book a call with a team that specializes in running high converting webinar campaigns for B2B brands like yours? And that question at the end of the survey yielded dozens of sales conversations, some just kind of free consulting calls, which I'm willing to do and offer that value up front. And some people who we had been connected with, I'd been connected with for a long time. They maybe saw my launch post. They didn't say anything then, but they answered yes. And they end up doing a project or becoming a client based on that question that I put at the end of the survey. So that was one path for folks. If they're like, hey, answering all these questions made me think about where I'm struggling and where I need help. And it wasn't too salesy. It was just a, hey, yes or no question. And if you hit yes, you got routed to my calendar booking page where they could quickly book a call with me. And if it was no, it was, hey, check your inbox. Over the next few weeks, as soon as the report's done, you're going to be an early access member as well. And so right now we've got people that have also joined the wait list to get the report. But I think that piece there of tying this into content creation and value addition, but also as a bit of discovery and leading to some actual lead generation, has been one of the things that's been most effective for me. And I think a lot of folks, large companies or small, they're allowing a lot of their prospects to hit dead ends, whether it's with research or other sorts of content marketing that they're doing.
Yeah, I see that. And it seems to me too that on the thank you page, probably could put a sign up for a webinar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I have. I've heard like that you have your thank you page is the only page that has 100%. That you have 100% conversion on it, meaning that every single person who goes through your funnel to the thank you page will see it. So it's one of the most valuable pieces of real estate within everything on your website.
That's a great way to put it. I don't think I've described it as succinctly as that. I might steal some of that language, Mandy, because it's so true. And it's usually an afterthought. It's, oh, we have to type in a thank you message. Like, let's just put that there. Right. But we're missing the fact that we have real intent and interest and attention of people that fit our buyer persona that are there on that page. What else should and could we do to do something with that attention?
So one of the things I want to point out about what you're doing is that this is something that could be put together in a matter of, a couple hours tops. Mm-hmm. That you could put this together into a Google form. I mean, I know you use Typeform, but you could put this together in in under 2 hours an entire little mini tiny funnel, and that would function and have a much higher response rate and a higher actual ability to generate some contacts that could turn into leads.
Mhm.
That has a higher ability than one of those big complex funnels that a lot of companies are in your inbox trying to sell you, that are these very complex things that you're jumping ahead to try to build and scale this funnel that they tell you this is going to automate your marketing, but you automate marketing that is unproven yet. So what I love about what you're sharing is that it's actually a way to scale, being able to get the initial information to be able to form your messaging around. And then at the same time, you're building an audience of, hundreds of people that actually are looking for the content that you have, so that when you provide it for them, it's just the next step that you're building more and more trust.
Mhm.
Another thing I want to point out too, you've this brought in dozens of calls. Now, some of them were sales calls, some of them were opportunities to build value, but those are
Mhm.
people in your pipeline.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so there's a lot of things that are happening here that I want to point out to people, because this is a scrappy way that requires the least amount of resources to be able to see results, instead of these big complex things that you put into place before it's proven.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was, and it's impacting the short term and the long term. I even, after I started this kind of research based outreach, I posted my some of the statistics that I was seeing of how many calls I had booked, what was just my response rate, because I was doing some manual outreach. I've also found that there's some LinkedIn automation tools that can help you with this. Now, I'm not in favor of over automation and spamming people with pitches as soon as they connect, those sorts of things. But I found that, hey, again, I've got to be scrappy. I've got to be very intentional about my go to market motions and what I choose to dedicate limited time and resources to when I launched my new agency. And so to me, I looked at some of those automation tools and I was like, well, I can kind of use what some people wield for evil and wield it for good. And it gave me some good insights. I mean, I was seeing like a 25% reply rate to my outreach based on the survey. Now, anybody listening to this, when was the last time for cold outreach you got anywhere near a 25% reply rate, right? And then probably about a 10%. I might be misquoting there. I don't know exactly what my conversion rate was to booked calls off of that, but it's been dozens, based on the 200 or
Okay.
so responses that we've seen. So it's been fantastic.
So then that initial post that you did, that like the new job post, now
Oh
did
yeah,
you put did you put the survey on that as well?
actually I didn't.
Okay.
I launched the survey probably within the first week after I went live. So it
Okay.
was a little bit more of like, hey, here's the problem that I saw. Here are the results that I've driven. Because that wasn't a helpful thing for me to launch with zero
Sure.
email list, nothing but my LinkedIn connections and reputation online. But I had been, basically what I was going to market with this offer came out of my own struggles, tweaks, and then results with running webinar campaigns. So I was able to say, hey, I don't have client testimonials, I don't have case studies, but I can tell you this is the problem that I'm helping solve. These are the results that I drove for myself and my teams as I started to develop this framework. If you know of anyone who, this could help, tag them in the post below. And I had a little bit of that. I also had just some, support as you do with starting a new job or launching something new. But I'll tell you from that post, I had someone um, refer their marketing leader to me and say, hey, we're thinking about our webinar campaigns. They're not really driving much results. You should talk to Logan. And then I got on that call and I was like, wait, who referred you? Because I wasn't connected to this new person, but I was connected to their CEO. But their CEO, I had never exchanged DMs with. I didn't recognize his name, like someone I see in the comments section or in my feed or in my comments section on LinkedIn. But he was one of those people who'd been connected with me for a long time, had followed my content and seen value. And then my post spurred a conversation he wanted his team to have with me. And so that was the other learning, is whether you have 1,000, 2,000, or 50,000 connections and followers on LinkedIn, there are a lot of folks who you might not realize who are following you, who are paying attention. They're, some people say the lurkers on LinkedIn. That sounds a little creepy, but I don't know of a better way to say it. Like kind of the silent scrollers, maybe, of folks that are paying attention, but you don't really know who they are yet. And so for me, looking at, hey, the years I spent building up my personal brand on LinkedIn was able to pay some dividends and help me launch quickly from a cold start.
Right. Well, and I've seen posts that had zero engagement on it, no likes, nothing, and brought in client, that nearly six-figure client, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
they're not going to be the person even on your webinar that like the webinar that you had me on, or for teamwork, for example, is like
Right.
one of a pretty large client that we brought in from that webinar that we were on. And this wasn't the guy that was sitting there. He wasn't sitting there in the comments like chatting up and everything. He was just quietly sitting there and saying, "Yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for." And we actually helped him be able to put together an offer that $1 million per year offer, that's the value of $5 million offer for his clients. So it's really powerful when you can be able to present in such a way where the quiet lurkers will actually just show up and reach out.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love that story.
All right, so we're looking at this. You've shared a few things that you can be doing to reach out, and let's talk about webinars a little bit more. So, I think one of the biggest challenges with webinars is like, how do you actually get people to show up? How do you what are some realistic expectations with what the numbers are too? And I have more questions too, but we'll start with that.
Yeah, we can start there. How do you get people to show up? Won't take people through the whole framework, but there's 5 parts to our webinar fast track framework. And on the front end is, how do you actually drive effective promotion? Because most people's promotion of webinars, stops with really 2 things, and it's the same old tired playbook. It's email your list, which if you don't have a large one, you're not going to expect much from that. And if you haven't been maintaining that list where you're sending newsletters and value added content to that list, then it's going to seem very promotional, very self-serving, kind of out of the blue. Plus your deliverability is not going to be great, but your own email list is where most people start. And then second is organic social. And hey, we'll create a graphic and we'll try and promote this. So for me, it's about expanding that list of channels, but it's also about the creative that you use to promote the webinar. So I'll actually start with the latter first, the creative. Most people name webinars and they don't put too much thought into it. It's long, it's this and that. I have actually been looking and studying a lot of YouTube content creators, whether they're business related or not, and looking at some of their formulas for titling their videos. Because on YouTube, if anyone is anything, they put so much time and energy into 2 things: the title and the thumbnail. And many of them, if you study YouTube, they do that before they ever start outlining the video. It is the title and the thumbnail. It is the packaging first. And so I've taken a similar approach with my clients' webinars. And so we start with, what is the engaging title? Even before that, you got to pick a topic that is going to be relevant. Right now, just figure out how you tie in AI to your industry and lead with that, and you'll probably see better results. So that's, kind of a quick hacky thing that you can do, but and make it legitimate. Like I just did a webinar earlier today with a client who's helping their clients do SEO, but in this new age of AI, of how do you get ranked in ChatGPT? What about Google's AI mode? All of those sorts of things. So tie it into something relevant, put more time into your title, like a YouTube title writer. And then the third is, I hate to see this in my LinkedIn feed. What does every B2B webinar graphic look like? It's got little bubbles with little heads and way too much information, that long title, and it's got the date, the time zone, where's it going to be, all of this sort of stuff that doesn't help with your conversions. It doesn't quickly stop me in the scroll. It doesn't, lead itself to conversion. So the other thing I've pulled from YouTube content creators is to start to create webinar graphics that look like YouTube thumbnails, right? Big face, concerned or shocked or whatever it is, with a big graphic that kind of hooks people in. And then they read the title for a little bit more, just like when we're scrolling on YouTube. So those have been 3 big things for me: topic, title, and thumbnail. I guess that's 3 T's. I should kind of package that up. Just came to me now. On the creative, before you start picking channels to promote your webinar. From there, then it's about channels. How can we get beyond just your email list and organic social? And a few things that have worked well for me is actually spinning up cold email campaigns that just invite people to a webinar. Most people, if they're doing LinkedIn outreach, they're just going straight to a sales pitch. They're not doing the research asked like we talked about earlier. When most people are doing cold email, they're also going straight to a cold sales pitch. They're not offering content and leading with that value. So I found that that's actually a very effective way to reach new folks when you don't have a large list. And I've even figured out some growth hacky ways where you can, let's say, list your event on an event platform like Eventbrite, Luma, or something like that, that actually allows you to email lists through their servers and promote your event, which then you can tie back into Zoom and only bring back in the emails to your list of the people who actually registered. So it's a way you can do cold email without putting your domain at risk or flooding your CRM with just a bunch of contacts that you bought from some list somewhere.
Right.
Then from there, I think doing some paid social has been one of the other areas that's been effective. So right now with a few clients, we're testing out thought leader ads on LinkedIn. Many people maybe are familiar with this. If you're in marketing, it's basically instead of running an ad on LinkedIn from your company page, you put out a personal post. Like Mandy, you would post from your account just like you would any organic LinkedIn post, or I would. But then from your company, you can actually sponsor that just like an ad and pick your targeting and your budget and all of those sorts of things. Also, if you list
So
your
do you mean like
webinar,
share it? So
what's
you're
up?
saying so what you're saying is you put the post on your personal profile, and
Right.
then you share it on your, like, so we would have my personal profile and then share it on Hands Off CEO and run the ads from Hands Off CEO. Is that what you're hearing? What
No,
you're saying?
actually one step before that. So you would create a
Okay.
post. Hey, we're doing this webinar. Here's the image, hopefully it's engaging. Here's what it's going to cover, that sort of stuff. You let that post breathe for a couple days and get some likes and comments, and maybe you get some signups from it or whatever, right? Then what you can actually do is you can go into LinkedIn Ads Manager and you can say, hey, I want to promote existing content. And you could pick the post from your profile as Mandy and boost that as an ad. And so instead of showing up as like Mandy's post and then like a repost from the company turned into an ad, it's just your organic post turned into an ad. And what's great
Mm-hmm.
is it looks like an organic post. The only thing that changes is like under your name, it says like promoted by Hands Off CEO, but it's
Right.
very subtle. It doesn't look like a repost from the company page. And
I
that
like
can
that.
be very, very effective. The other thing on LinkedIn that's interesting is you can list your webinar as a LinkedIn event. Whether you're going to live stream it to LinkedIn or not, you can list it as an event, even if you're just going to host it on Zoom or Goldcast or some other webinar platform. And 2 things there, you can then run those as event ads, which then show up in the feed very organically, and people can see in real time how many people have registered. And it kind of does the thing like LinkedIn does of like, I might see something in my feed, Mandy, where it says like, "Oh, Mandy commented on this," and then I see a
Mm,
post because of that. Right? LinkedIn loves that
love it.
networking piece. They would see the event, and then it's like, "Oh, 87 people have registered, 12 from your network," and it shows those little face icons of people you might recognize. So those can be really effective as well. And then the third piece with LinkedIn is if you are a speaker on a LinkedIn event. Again, it doesn't have to be a LinkedIn live stream. It can just be something that you list there and you put a link to your Zoom webinar. You can go and manage that event and you can click invite, and LinkedIn will let you send 1,000 invitations a week to your first degree connections. And it doesn't show up as like a spammy DM. It just shows up like a new connection request, but it would come from one of your existing connections. So Mandy, if you saw it, it would be like, hey, Logan's inviting you to the AI SEO playbook this Thursday, August 21st, and you have an X and a check. And it's not game changing, but it's another route that you can get people into your webinar because they just see that if the topic is applicable, they click check, and now they're registered for the event on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Those are fantastic tips there. And it's all the more reason why it's important to be continuing to build your LinkedIn profile. And,
Hmm.
all of these tactics, these are great, but they don't work unless you have those, like you said, those three T's, the title, topic, and did you say the thumbnail?
Thumbnail. Hmm.
I think we probably could work on our thumbnail as you're saying that, because we actually put that much time and energy and attention to our YouTube channel for a thumbnail. And I know we have nice photos, but I think that that's something we could test. But yeah, so we do a weekly webinar, and it's actually a really small executive briefing where we
Okay.
have limited number, and our topic is how to make your competition irrelevant even in a down market. And it does really well, actually. So
Hmm.
it's very popular, and we fill it every week. So it's really fun because like my style is I want to be able to have a smaller group so that I could see everybody's face, everybody's there, and we're interacting, and we can actually hear people's challenges, and then I can actually modify it to fit the people that are in the room so that it's actually a unique experience.
Hmm.
And so that's our approach. Anyone listening that wants to go to that, how to make your competition irrelevant, especially in a down market, you go to handsoffceo.com/briefing, and you can sign up for that. So, but yeah, I am a very big believer in the training structure. Back in 2020, we I committed to doing a webinar every single week. And
Hmm.
I used a similar structure and filled it completely with people from LinkedIn. And everybody was locked in their house, and it seemed like a good place to be at, because like, how else are you going to interact with human beings other than the ones that you're related to, right? So it worked really well, as far as like a way to be able to connect with new people. And I know we generated quite a bit of business from that, and
Hmm.
some way we just got away from doing that as consistently, and that's something that we've brought back in the past quarter, and it's been going so well. And I'm thinking to myself, looking at some of our past resources, I'm like, what the heck did we stop doing this for? This it actually just makes sense. But we do have a lot of resources to be able to. We have a big list that we can continue to fill that with. So I'm really glad you're sharing with some of these other resources so that people can learn how to actually fill those with ideal clients as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead, Logan.
Oh, I was just going to say, I had after my launch post, going kind of back to that from earlier in the conversation, I had a client who, well, now they're a client, but they weren't at the time. They had actually been on a lot of the agency life webinars, the series where we met that we've talked about a few times in the
Mhm.
conversation. And he mentioned, hey, we don't have a large email list. Will this strategy still work? And I talked a little bit about, well, even if you don't get large attendance, when was the last time you were talking for a full hour and you captured that video talking about your expertise, answering questions that can feed your social content? So I was like, for one, it's a good exercise to get in and can lead to other things. But then I was like, but I think with this framework, we can actually drive some results and get registrants. And it was that client who we were hosting the webinar for earlier today. We had over 200 signups. We booked a dozen sales calls off of that. And
Wow.
this was just his second webinar. And we haven't even gone very heavy with like a lot of LinkedIn ad spend. We've been doing a lot of the things that we mentioned here. I will say the one other thing that we did was we found industry newsletters where we could buy ads or do content collaborations to promote the webinar. Because a lot of people who are, doing ad buys on newsletters, again, they're just pointing directly to their product or service instead of using those ad dollars to promote content to get people into your funnel before you start to make that next ask that is more sales related. And so that to me was just kind of a great story of these tactics that we're talking about paying off in pretty short order. Because when he asked me, I was like, I think so, but that's my hunch. But it's
Right.
proved out over the last couple of months. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you actually mentioned about the importance of this webinar format that you're talking about. This is about building a relationship. This is about being able to educate them on their problem and helping them see a better way. It's not about you pitching your service and your product. In fact, I in my perspective, I might hint on it, like what we do, but like
Mhm.
almost entirely, this is not about me. This is not like 30% of it about me and my bio, which is what most webinars are. And then it's not about like building it up so that you can make this big pitch at the end. Like
Mhm.
that works for low ticket price points, but it doesn't work for and it takes a lot of refinement to be able to even get to that point where you can make offers like that.
Right.
But you're much better off being able to just build the case for why they need to make a change and build the case for what they need to have in place to be able to have the result and inspire them to see what's possible. So that's the executive briefing format that we teach our clients, and
Yeah.
they've seen some great results from this too. And but it's not about the pitch at all. And I think people
Mhm.
completely miss it when
Yeah.
they start making it about me and about my service.
I completely agree, and I'll give people three things to help with that. One, if you create kind of this fork in the road that we were talking about earlier that I've done with the survey, but you also do this with your webinars. When people sign up for your webinar, don't send them to a dead end thank you page. Ask a few more questions and ask, hey, would you like to book a call with a team that specializes in solving this problem? If they say yes, then guess what? You're booking those calls before you ever show up to the webinar. So it almost relieves some of your pressure of like, I got to squeeze in that pitch awkwardly during the webinar. You can just educate the people who are showing up there, because we know the stats show in B2B, 95% of your target market is not in market for what you do right now. Only 5% is. So try and capture more of that 5% during the sign up process, and then treat the others as the folks that they are. They're looking learners. They're trying to figure out, do you really understand my problem? The second thing I would say is, when you do introduce yourself, don't try and make 30% about yourself, but cover these two things. You want to present yourself as a guide, not the hero of the story, to borrow from a marketing framework I love from Donald Miller called StoryBrand. And if you're the guide, there are two things you want to communicate: empathy and authority. So when you do that intro of, I'm Logan Lyles with Demand Shift, or I'm Mandy Elfson with Hands Off CEO on your webinar, refine a 1 to 2 minute talk track that communicates that empathy. I've felt this problem. I've struggled with this before. I talk about, in my context, hey, here's where I ran webinars for a long time and saw zero pipeline. And then number two is authority. So how can you pair that with authority? So for instance, I was running a webinar with a client, Daniel Borba at Spark Portal, and they do video as a service as an agency, as an alternative to the typical way for companies to do video. And as we were talking, he was like, I asked him, Daniel, how many clients have you guys served? How many videos have you produced? And he was like, oh, I think probably over 10,000. I was like, that number, that needs to be in your intro, right? Like, hey, I'm
Mhm.
Daniel. I understand how hard it is to scale video. That's why I started Spark Portal. At this point, we've produced over 10,000 videos for our clients, seeing great results with this framework. That's actually what we're going to teach you today so you can do it yourself. And then we move into just teaching, right? But if you have that short empathy and authority statement at the beginning, then people are going to connect you in their minds as that guide who could help them if they don't want to take your content and do it themselves. And those people, maybe they are going to be super quiet, as we were talking about earlier, but the DIYers versus the people who want to just hire the experts, they're going to split themselves off and self-select anyway. Just make yourself the obvious choice, kind of like you talk about, make the
Right.
competition irrelevant, right?
Right. Well, I love it. These are really great tips that you've been sharing, Logan. And I'd love to hear, if people are listening and they'd like to reach out to you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is the easiest way. So just look me up there, Logan Lyles, Lyles. If webinars are something that are on the horizon, or maybe there's something you're struggling with, go to webinarsurvey.com, and you can fill out the 4 minute survey. You're not going to get any hard pitch, but you'll be able to benchmark your data. You'll get access to the report once that's live. And then the third way is, if you think we could help with your webinar and lead gen strategy, go to demandshift.co. So those are three ways folks can engage depending on where you're at today.
Thanks so much. That's really fantastic resources you've been sharing, Logan, and we appreciate you having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Mandy. This has been fun to be on the other side of the mic with you. I appreciate it.